As Ethel Kennedy took her place at her side companion during political events, artists managed to capture what appeared to Beta ideal union for her political career. She posed for pictures while holding his hand, brought up 11 children while giving lectures a legacy he helped create. Yet, consider this. Those pictures were never displayed. At least Ethel was aware of it. The Hollywood stars were not unknown to her. The family friends were not unknown to her. She was well informed on matters that would significantly ladies gather their belongings and glance away back. Even worse, she was aware prior to their marriage. Roberta F. Kennedy cheated more than once. He engaged in a number of affairs that when they were married, and she knew about all of them. From famous movie actors to their immediate family's acquaintances, including his sister-in-law, the infidelity of Bobby was a glaring secret. Ethel remained, though. Her voice sorried a large and extended family, blindfolded her self-sight to betrayal following treachery. The who Bobby cheated on isn't the only question. Along with. That's why Ethel decided to stick it out. That is all. At the video's conclusion, you'll come to realize that the reality is rather more intricate than what you anticipate. We should go back to the first chapter since Ethel's the tale starts without treachery. It first has to make a decision. She was raised as Ethel Skakel was born into affluence. Kin, and she crossed paths with the Kennedys via whom they are friends with. There was an innocent young lady who stumbles into a poisonous situation. She had a firm grasp on her getting into one of the Kennedys' standing in society. All those around them realized that faithfulness wasn't treasured by one's family. Kennedy, Joseph, Sr., the head of the household, served as an example for an individual's offspring. Separate from his own affairs, led them honestly enough to he made sure everyone understood that the same mentality to his offspring as family wealth. Adultery was almost already included in the Kennedy playbook. If you had aspirations of becoming a member of this noble family's marriage, unsaid rules were accepted by you. Refrain from speaking up. Keep up outward displays. Keep it private at all times. Scandal. Flash that grin for the cameras, the goings-on in the background. In any case, Ethel's feelings for Bobby blossomed on June 17, 1950, when she was yet naive enough to think that love could conquer any obstacle. Furthermore, as per the findings of her true love was for those who knew her who he was. She is portrayed in one biography as falling in love with him more intensely than before thought was feasible. Such a powerful being loved can lead you to accept things I never expected you to. I can help you justify actions that might not appropriate under any other circumstances. But prior to discussing Bobby's business, it is important for you to grasp this concept with relation to his initial encounter, since it determines the standard by which all that came after. As Larry King, a biographer, in reality, Bobby's dad, paid for to go to a Harlem brothel with him when he had only just turned 21. Kennedy, Joseph orchestrated a sex session for his son with a black woman, basically purchasing the initiation ritual for his kid. It was a form of maturation ritual. Once all was done, Bobby's evaluation seemed unusually icy and uncaring. He was claimed it wasn't terrible, but especially fantastic, since he was instead reviewing a dinner from a restaurant while elaborating on a personal human prior knowledge. That carefree indifference, that perspective on transactions informs you a crucial aspect of how Bobby could go about building relationships by his entire life. A year down the road, union with Ethel. The age of her was 22. By the year 1951, became parents for the first time. They were going to ultimately have 11 children as a couple, which seems to be the cornerstone of a robust stand. To a certain extent, it was a family unit. But at some point during the construction year, somebody's home, upholding a political job, moving up the corporate ladder from serving as the senator's attorney general, and Bobby performed the role of Kennedy golden boy that made room for other women, a plethora of different women. The trend began in the early without ever truly ceasing. As for Ethel, still being aware, still in spite of shame, even though it brought up almost a group of 12 kids who required secure parents, stayed put. Thus, we get addressing the ladies individually. Bobby's preference involved in extramarital affairs frequently depended towards the Hollywood sign. These were not coincidental affairs with ladies he encountered at pubs. Thessie on purpose, while a few of the USA's most renowned female celebrities. And Ethel had some inkling that they existed. Even though a large portion of the nation continued to shadows. They included Kim Novak, Ifo, So you've never heard of classic Hollywood. The 1950s were Novak's breakout years. Columbia Pictures signed her in 1954 and quickly rose to the position of superstar in Hollywood box office receipts. This is a huge deal. Works such as Picnic, Pal Joey, and Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. There was no one like her, actress whose work came to define a time woman who frightened males and feeling jealous. It is said that the affair took place while Bobby was still in his role as senior prosecutor working under his sibling's administration. Carefully consider the potential danger over there. This man wasn't an ordinary citizen, that he held a position of immense authority in the nation, which ranks second only to the president, who was engaged in a Hollywood icon. Specifics regarding low frequency of relationships, which is usual for such Kennedy cases that as a unit. They became experts at maintaining remains a mystery. While several sources have verified for a short while they were involved, Novak eventually left the Hollywood scene for the most part, which consistently appears too peculiar considering her level of achievement. She wed thrice before settling down, accompanying an equine vet to Oregon identified as Robert Malloy. Housed in coexisted in a wood home until his passing in 2020. Throughout her life, she kept quiet about Bobby. The rumblings never truly came to a halt. Hollywood can remember a lot of things. Lee Remick came next. That performer were nominated for an Oscar. 4 Days of Wine and Roses was her role. She did celebrated with a Tony for Wait until Dark on Main Street. Some of her iconic film roles include Murder in the Omen, A Closer Look. Her character was magnificent, clever, and wedded to her first spouse, Bill Cullerin, during the time that she purportedly started dating Robert Kennedy during the commencement of the 1960s. The one that Remick has relationship with Bobby allegedly occurred in the midst of her responsibilities as a mother to two beside her husband, the producer. Here is the schedule coincides with substantial portions of her professional situations, which has you questioning her. Found a happy medium. Confidential gatherings including a head of state, while filming substantial movies, while still being presentable. A blissful union. I'm completely drained considering the matter. In the future, she tied the knot with Gowan's William Rory, a British producer, and they remained together till her passing in 1970, diagnosed with renal carcinoma in 1991. With just 55, she, too, never verified the matter in plain view. Yet those associated with each family was aware. Undoubtedly, they were constantly aware, but the real messiness begins at this point. Given that Claudine Long wasn't merely an ordinary Bobby, a Hollywood starlet, met her at a social event. Andy Williams, the man she was married to, renowned artist and TV presenter. And being good friends, the two couples didn't friends and acquaintances, not competitors in the identical spheres, and, every so often, intersected paths. Very close pals. They skipped summer travels the Salmon River side by side, as they went door to door in 3 locations. Palm Springs, NYC, and Hickory Reston, Virginia. While they were playing, the children in unison. Women conversed about their families' life. While talking politics, the husband's amusement, and the like. They exemplified companions who celebrated holidays side by side. Take a moment to consider that dynamic. Weekends were spent by Bobby and Ethel in terms of Andy and Claudine. Had they eating, going boating, swimming, performing like a pair, relishing in the pleasure of their prosperity and excellent luck. On occasion, Bobby and Claudine exchanged vows in 1967. Boundary that was inappropriate, fingers crossed. It is said that the affair took place that year, in plain sight for all to see, even though it was brief. Upon Bobby shot in June at the Ambassador Hotel on August 5, 1968, Williams and Long both hurried in to Good Samaritan Hospital while carrying the Kennedy family. They patiently waited as the physicians sought to prolong his life. Bobby passed away suddenly, and after a night spent with his loved ones and his pals around him. Thereafter, Long Williams put the name Robert on their son in his recall, which prompts an awkward question. Informed Andy Williams about what happened? How, therefore, could he have standing on the woman's side? Ethel felt who had been unfaithful to her husband. All of the are mourning in unison. Every one of them misrepresenting the fact that their friendship was contaminated. The degree of dishonesty vital for keeping those connections alive almost seems incomprehensible. Throughout the years, discussions surrounding Robert Kennedy were hushed along with Marilyn Monroe. Allegations surfaced verging on being too shocking to be real. A presently serving as Attorney General engaged in the world's most famous actress. It felt more like a tabloid story. Next, everything was altered when a letter came to light. The lengthy letter, 2 pages, was in behalf of Bobby, Jean, and John F., Kennedy's female relative. It was probably during the 1920s and 1930s. Furthermore, she articulated her sincere joy at the prospect of her brother Bobby were all the rage recently, as were Monroe. On top of that, proposed that Monroe accompany on his way back to the East Coast, Kennedy Coast, as though she were urging aprimizing a fresh love affair. This wasn't hearsay published in a tabloid. This wasn't word got out by those who were against Kennedy. Was really his sister recognizing the matter in writing. Handling it with the seriousness was typical for a married woman sibling to have an affair with someone else feminine figure. You can find Bobby and Marilyn at a number of their joint events. Standing close by, they're giggling, appreciating one another's company in a manner that seems to imply acquaintance beyond informal knowledge. However, the incident that, it seems, prompted Ethel to her breaking point. In the infamous 45th anniversary Marilyn performed during a 1962 birthday celebration, the famously seductive rendition of Happy Happy Birthday. No one forgets that performance. The form-fitting garment, her dulcet tones, the way she brought joy to a birthday, is a seductive sound. This is off the most memorable times in the history of popular culture in the United States. For what people tend to avoid discussing took place at the celebration that followed. That is what Lou Harris, who was involved in on hand that evening. Marilyn inserted the moves on Bobby just before he faced me, dear readers. He gave her a realistic portrayal that restrained Bobby's movement, overly forceful in her advances, making it crystal clear to all onlookers if there was a relationship developing between Ethel observed as it transpired. She did held a beverage in her palm, while she watches another woman aggressively seek her out's pals, even though thousands chose to ignore the situation. Her degree of angrily she departed from the celebration without delay, informing individuals that what she had just seen was the most horrible sight she had ever laid eyes on. The majority spouses probably would have wanted out that's it. Had the majority of women been on the scene, Bobby was confronted by not wanting to be a part of it. Marilyn this shameful pretense any longer. Ethel returned home in a huff, but she remained put. She stayed forever. She controlled her anger, remained calm, and carried on fulfilling the role of a loyal spouse. The specific characteristics of Bobby and Marilyn's connection is still not entirely evident that we don't have any hard evidence of how far things physically progressed. I can assure you that Bobby did not record his business dealings while Monroe passed away prior to completing her writing every autobiography. However, the correspondence issued by Images, his sister, thing that happened at the birthday party, various individuals from that time period affirm their involvement. Everything culminates in something beyond just becoming buddies. And August, a mere month after Monroe's death, was 1962, in the midst of mystery, which further intensified the speculation. There are a few theories about a plot so much as to imply that the Kennedys were participated in her demise, notwithstanding the absence of reliable proof of that. For what is the fact that Marilyn was overly knowledgeable, had approached too closely, and was developing into illegal responsibility. Her untimely demise resolved an issue that might have undermined Kennedy's political apparatus, the culmination of a 4-year betrayal years. Relationships with Hollywood stars, what happened after the actresses were excruciating, had a catastrophic impact. Because most important and protracted had no involvement with an unknown person. I didn't in the company of an unknown individual. The experience was joined forces with Jackie Kennedy, his sister's husband's widow, and his sister-in-law's sister, the United States First Lady states. Upon the death of John F. Kennedy in August 1963, Bobby's collapse in full detail. He was more than simply bereaved in conventional wisdom. He possessed what was now be officially diagnosed with a full-blown nervous breakdown. He constructed a shrine to his sibling in an office brimming with documentation, literature, and artifacts from all that they had lost. John F. Kennedy's varsity coat featuring the president's insignia encrusted with what appears to be a talisman for protection. In his car, he headed to 2 times daily, the Arlington National Cemetery visiting the tomb, as if it were his brother Scoot potentially persist in some way, as if gazing into the everlasting fire would result into return to him. Bobby gnawed on his nails until his fingertips were raw from the swift. He was decreased a significant amount of weight, appearing thin and devoid of plumpness in images from the time frame. He was unable to get more than a short nap, step by step. The memory of a long gone hurt that never got better. Discomfort was a tangible symbol of the pain of loss. And amidst his sorrow, engulfed in despair with remorse and fury against the universe, he sought solace in the most disastrous place. Looking over at Jackie, he shifted his balance. The situation supposedly started sometime after the assassination that dragged on for 4 years. For years, this wasn't just a fleeting instance of vulnerability. It wasn't a couple looking for ease throughout the time immediately following trauma. This constituted an ongoing connection that all those involved in the Kennedys were aware of it and decided to ignore. John F. Kennedy, who was functioned as the Undersecretary of Trade and was very familiar with the family, added thereafter that Bobby had slung there like adolescent heartbroken souls. It wasn't discreet. Their caution was lacking. They seen as a head-over-heels pair indirectly in front of Ethel, the 11 children of Bobby, directly before everyone who should have mattered. Roosevelt made the assumption that Bobby would likely may have married after divorcing Ethel if it had been a political and Jackie spiritually feasible, though naturally it did not. Of Catholic faith, the Kennedys were that a split would have been disastrous for Bobby's political trajectory, eradicating any possibility considered being the next president as well as marrying the sister of his brother. That was shocking in and of itself, redemption. Consequently, the matter persisted in secret, not disclosed to the general public, but familiar to all those in their inner circle. At the time at the Ambassador Hotel, Bobby was shot after claiming victory in the 1968 California Democratic primaries. According to one report, it was Jackie who gave the orders clinicians to discontinue life support, not Ethel, not the mother of his 18-year-old son and wife, their 11 children. It was Jackie who did that judgment, which reveals precisely who ultimately had sway over Bobby's heart. Consider the gravity of the situation at that time turned out to be for Ethel. Her spouse is passing away. His children surround her, a sea of sobs, each one of them gazing in her fortitude. As for the lady who Shas engaged in extramarital affairs for 4 times, is the ultimate decider of survival or death decisions. She was betrayed by a woman, had annihilated every possibility of genuineness, behaving in an intimate manner toward her spouse, most immediate family member of Bobby. Eli stood alongside Bobby's children and the remainder of this family, the Kennedys, with complete knew that her spouse had a romantic crush on for a long time with someone else. And yet her silence was deafening. She upheld Hera's public display of grief for the committed wife, and the way he safeguarded his legacy as far as anyone could tell. Thus, this is the issue that is frequently raised. Given Ethel Sto remain, why put up with years of shame, treachery, humiliation in front of others? Why support a couple with 11 children that was seriously flawed? For what reason would one want to shield a guy that obviously didn't value her enough to never stray? The short response is deeply cared for him. The life story that said that her feelings for Bobby were more beyond her wildest expectations was being serious. Truthfully, she loved this man despite his imperfections. A number of love is so profound that it persuades they are worth the hardship they endured to justify their actions. They justify the good happy times exceed the sad ones. The fact that the bond they shared as a family is more important preference over faithfulness. The meaning of love giving up all. But that's not all love. Kennedy was Ethel's family, and she married into theirs that period of time. Prominence, power, and that accompanied it and the opportunity that few reach. Ethel Kennedy, the wife of a prominent head of state, senator's wife, could be the next first woman. Previously, she was entry to the upper echelons of power in the United States. Real change could be influenced by her on matters that concerned her. Her voice was heard that were important. Getting Bobby's divorce would risk having all that taken away. Without her, she couldn't have been rejected, stigmatized as the lady a Kennedy family couldn't manage wife. She almost became an afterthought, unfinished business since she couldn't their spouse was content. She has a strong social the ground would have been leveled. The doors that had previously been open to her would have shut, and her kids would have endured a troubled childhood, which, into the 1960s, were a time of extreme societal shame. And then there are those 11 young people. With that many offspring, It's not easy to just walk away. Ethel put their stability ahead of hers to own sentiments of hurt. The one she got to keep relatives unbroken, regardless of whether founded on deceit. She hoped they would acquire keeping both parents at home wealthy upbringing, to mature into Kennedys with every benefit that identity given. Afterwards, there is the code of the Kennedys. Each member of that family realized that your role is to safeguard the dynasty most importantly. Cleaning up after yourself isn't rocket science. Clean clothes. Scandals are not something you initiate. Poison the political reputation. You go around ensure that everyone is on the same page and never allow others outside to witness the chaos that under the surface, rotting away. Ethel was aware that if they spoke up, it would lead to everything that Bobby was attempting to construct, his time in politics, the impact he had, and the futures of children. Thus, she remained subdued, conformed to expectations to play while quietly going through hell. Following that, before Ethel had Bobby killed in 1968, still another decision to take. Her options were authored a memoir. Her options were publicized his entire life, implicated individuals, ruined the meticulously planned Kennedy legendary tales. Instead of paying, publishers send the millions. Had it been published, the book most popular. What if she had gotten vengeance, absolved herself of guilt, and made money off of her suffering? On the contrary, when dedicated her remaining years to safeguarding the things he left behind. With her help, she brought up their kids. On my own. Her participation in social matters that Bobby had prioritized. She did attending events hosted by the Kennedy family, upheld connections with the incredibly those who had misled her, and never openly discussed the ordeal she had gone through. Through 2024, she bore those hidden for the next 56 years until his demise. That is considered a strength by some. Some people could use a different term entirely. Ethel Kennedy, however, orchestrated or solved the issue of what was paramount. Tosh was. Honesty, family, and legacy were her priorities. Deprivation of self-respect, avoidance of equitable treatment. According to her, being even a humiliated and deceived Kennedy being nothing at all was preferable to being Kennedy. None anything. No less than the Kennedy brothers always regarded as the political high status. Their matters are incidental spoken about, but seldom investigated in specific information. Many people hail Bobby as an advocate for civil rights, a spokesperson for the downtrodden, a political victim beheaded before to realizing his full potential. That is precisely what Ethel desired. Their price was paid by her. Forever, through each affair with a permanent grin on her face throughout the video equipment. You may view her as a helpless victim, or either you or your partner is likely to rely on your priorities. Disclosed her gender stifled by external forces control? Alternatively, was Bobby's sway of acting by declining to create boundaries? Was she willing to give up all for her love, with the welfare of her children in mind? Instead, did she prioritize his power and prestige over honoring oneself? There isn't a simple solution. One thing was clear, though, she was aware. From the day of their marriage until she had a precise understanding of the type of Mr. Bobby Kennedy became. Her knowledge extended to several a trip to the brothel that his dad had planned, Kim Novak, Lee Remick, and her knew-it-all Anne Long Claudine. Her knowledge extended to several while Marilyn Monroe held him down against a wall where JFK's birthday bash was held. She was aware concerns the 4-year romance with Jackie should have been completely unacceptable, and staying was still her choice. It's the truth behind the narrative, not Bobby's adulterous partner, regarding Ethel's decision to become Mrs. The value of Robert F. Kennedy exceeded individual fulfillment, individual worth, her personally tranquilly. It was her decision, repeatedly for many years. She also went to her grave with that decision intact, regretting it in public at any point.